Hey mate, happy Monday. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you going, man?
Yeah, really good. Had a pretty busy Monday morning. It's 9 o'clock here in the People's Republic of WA, and yeah, already up early. I've set the early morning alarm. I'm definitely out of holiday mode. First thing today, so early alarm for 5 a.m. Well, not early for you, but early for me, 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Was a struggle. Did not sleep well, so bit
Is it
slower
hot
this
over there?
morning. No, it's cooled down a little bit.
Yep.
Yesterday was about, I think, 28. Someone will correct me, and I don't really know what the weather is um, today. I did just get off the phone with Zoe. Today's 29, so pretty nice. Did get off the phone with Zoe just before, and she said that yeah, it's quite warm in SA.
36.
Yeah, wow,
Yeah, it's hot.
that's hot for Adelaide as well.
I don't cope well in the heat either. Man.
Are
And
you a
the
snow body?
yeah, definitely the UK genes is just like holding
Yeah,
strong onto onto the thermoregulation
yeah, big time.
or lack thereof, I should say.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no. So it's been a pretty good it's been a pretty good start to the day. One of my focuses this year is to get into the gyms more when I'm in WA, and not necessarily um, because not when exclusively when clients are there, just to watch a lot more sessions and provide a little bit more feedback to floor coaching and ensuring that the quality that's assumed is being delivered, I guess. So did a bit of that this morning, and then jump back home to have a quick chat with you.
Nice.
Yeah,
How
man.
many
How's
people are
your
you
day going?
managing right now?
Sorry.
How many people are you managing right now,
I
directly and
get
indirectly?
I get this question a lot. Directly, I want to say five, but probably more like seven. Indirectly, I don't know, 20, 25. I don't actually know exact number.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Um,
people.
yeah, look, I think four's a good number. Six
Yeah.
is the upper limit, I would say. And that's based on some research I've read as well. And that's kind of what we're working off as well to make sure that no one's managing more than 4 to 6 people. But there's a few different types of people or two few different roles. So not just managing one particular role. There's a few different positions under the guidance. So, but that's across 4 clubs. Some new, some old, some new management people or new people in the roles that I'm managing, and some that have been in there for a little while. So it's yeah, good fun, a good little challenge to start the year. But yeah, no, it was good to get into the club this morning, see some faces that I haven't seen in a while in terms of clients, because it was back at the gym that I used to coach at. So it's always good to see some familiar faces.
Nice.
But yeah, I'll be up at another gym a little bit further away this afternoon to check in on them and see how they're going and do the rounds kind of early in the week, try and get a lot of the work, a lot of the check-ins done a bit earlier in the week so we can get through a lot of more administrative duties sort of the back end of the week. What about you? How was coaching this morning?
Good early start up at 4, and man, it feels good to be back in a routine. Just
Yeah,
feel so lost in those weeks off, man. Like especially that week between Christmas and New Year's, where it's just like, man, the time just is it just moves differently between the 26th Boxing Day and then the 30th and 31st. It just feels weird that time,
it's
and
like a time warp, hey?
yeah, it's weird, super weird. But back into a routine now, which is nice. So
Yeah,
3 earlies. Um, and yeah, 4 nights a week now. So with those two footy clubs, and then starting this 16-week program in a couple of weeks. So that won't be a lot of face-to-face stuff, just a couple of
yeah,
sessions over the 4 months. But yeah, it feels good to be in a routine. Yeah, I feel more awake and more alert, even though I've slept way less. But I'm up and I'm doing stuff early, which feels good.
yeah, man. I think I'm really curious to hear more about your 16-week program. And I saw your post go up last week about athletes that are wanting some sort of S&C coaching and that sort of thing. I think you've got a lot of fingers in a few different pies, a lot of energy around you at the moment. How's that going with your points of focus and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, the S&C stuff um, is an important thing that I've focused on for the last few years for myself, and even prior to that, just being kind of constantly riddled with injuries and loving being around sport and people training and whatnot, and that just kind of like amalgamated into me doing my S&C qualifications, which
Yep.
then, just turns into like it's January. And if you aren't already like pretty deep into your preseason stuff, especially for footy, I'm thinking then you might be in some trouble in 3 or 4 months or even 2 months when you play your first trial, and then 4 months when round 1 hits and you're in back-to-back games for 20 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So it was just like, I guess just like had like a thought that potentially there's a lot of people that want to take their sport seriously, but maybe don't know how to. And and the club, and in my experience, the clubs just don't provide the level of support that people need, that athletes need. And and I feel like this online program, albeit not optimal, because ideally you're training with the athletes every single day face to face, and you're really giving them specific stuff to them. This is like the next best thing, I guess.
Yeah.
In that we can get big groups in and we do some testing stuff together, and then they go away and we create a team Strava and we're tracking all their energy system training and their split times and that stuff. And then individually they have their own True Coach account where they're putting in their loads that they're lifting and the reps and sets and those types of things. And then preventable or injury prevention exercises like Copenhagen's and Nordic curls and Harrop curls and, et cetera. There's like a plethora of things that you can do there. And then they're just like gauging those things themselves. So the goal is to try and create pretty autonomous athletes and almost have like a level of education within the program where they are understanding the reason why.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be the biggest difference, I think, in programs is if people understand the reason why they're doing it, then their buy-in is way bigger. And they actually, give a shit essentially when they go into the gym and they're doing this stuff. Like with the Harrop curls or, the Copenhagen's, it's like, with the Copenhagen, for example, you're just like laying there with your leg on a bench. It's like, what is this actually doing? If you don't understand, then, the level of buy-in is just going to be way less.
I think it's way more important for that sort of demographic as well. The athletic population. I feel like potentially Gen Pop, are excited to come in and move, and they would initially, especially, just care less about the why behind the movement. They're just trying to move more, eat better, and get that calorie input to be lower than the calorie output. Whereas obviously with the athletic pops, like, cool, like, I've only got a limited amount of time. I'm sub-elite, so I don't have, this isn't my full-time job. Why have you got me doing Copenhagen's? Why am I now front squatting instead of back squatting? Like, it's way more taxing on my trunk. So, is it necessary? Yes, it is, because like that's really, really, really cool and pretty important info to share. So have you got many people onto it?
Right now, it's probably looking like, so with the footy club or the 2 footy clubs that I'm running with now, hopefully get 30 guys out of those 2.
Yep.
And then potentially a women's footy team and like a whole rugby club, ideally. But we'll see just like how much buy-in we get.
Yeah, see.
The setup for it in terms of like sign-ups, I purposely don't want to run full clubs.
Yeah.
And I want to run individual athlete programs where I find that if you run full clubs, the average level of buy-in is just significantly lower, because maybe the club is paying for it or each individual athlete is paying a lot less. So if it's like, not that I would ever charge this little, but if it was like $20 a week or something, people throw $20 a week at anything. So I want them to have to, it's like finding a medium between cheap enough. I don't want to use the term cheap, or affordable enough.
Yeah.
But not too expensive that they just don't get on it, but also not too affordable that they just don't care about it and they'll just throw the money away and not do the program. So it's kind of like finding that happy medium, which is, a bit of a challenge, but this is a pretty new thing for me. I've always done S&C stuff, but this is a pretty new structure. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of feedback we get, what kind of results we get over the next 4 months or so. Starting in a couple of weeks, we'll do our testing and we'll set some baselines and we'll go from there.
Sick, dude. Really, really exciting. So like you said, if you're not already doing preseason by now, you're kind of behind the 8 ball. How do you think you're going to counteract that?
How am I going to counteract it with the program?
But yeah, if this is starting in a couple of weeks, yeah.
I find that setting a plan for what's like, this kind of applies to everything, but understanding where you want to be, what your end goal is, and then reverse engineering it from there. So if you're lacking with like midline stability, or you have a lot of soft tissue injuries, or you lack like basic level like aerobic capacity, or your lactate threshold is really low, or whatever the thing is. Could be, it's like so many examples of that. It's like, okay, that's the specific goal over the next 4 months. That's the ideal situation, is if you can work individually with each athlete. However, being a big group where it's really only just like 1 or 2 iterations of the same program, or like maybe a handful of iterations of the same program, you're going to see general adaptation like across all of the different energy systems and strength stimuli, whether it be like midline strength and overhead stability, and posterior range of motion, posterior strength, hamstring like distal strength, hamstring proximal strength. And just like figuring all these things out, and creating a bit of a hierarchy or like a prioritization list. Like, what do most people need? Most people need some level of like aerobic capacity, lactate threshold, and then some speed stuff closer to the season. Most people need some kind of like posterior chain activation stuff, and some speed work and some mobility. They need some ankle stiffness. They need some midline stiffness. There's like a list of things that I've written down, and then I'm just like basically just numbering them like 1 through 15. Like, what do I think most people or most athletes need? And that's come from just like asking the question, essentially, like asking the athletes, what have you really struggled with? And whatever comes up the most, that kind of like creeps its way up the list of the priority. Like, what are we actually going to train first?
So that'll be like obviously based on like winter sport athletes.
Generally like field sport, essentially. So like footy, rugby, soccer, and netball's not a field sport, but same kind of stuff.
Cool. Sick, man. Sounds like you've put a lot of thought into it.
And I've been doing it for a little while in a different capacity, not so much in this online kind of group style, or not even online. It's still individual. It is online, I should say. It's not super specific. But something's better than nothing. And I just remember what my pre-seasons were like. And if I had something like this, I'd likely still be playing, because I wouldn't be so injured like I was when I was playing. So this kind of like strengthening and, engine work is going to be really beneficial for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think I'm really excited to hear how it travels, I guess. I definitely think it's important, just for even longevity of social sport, like not even sub-elite. Like, I myself was super niggly and injured through the back half, or through kind of the back half of last year's hockey season. And I'm pretty active and mobile and have a good base of athleticism anyway. But I haven't had that build up through. It wasn't conscious. It wasn't a conscious athleticism towards my sport. It was just like, I'm athletic and I do a sport. And so, the body breaks down, the body gets niggles and injuries, and it's like, it stops performing optimally and that sort of stuff. So I think, programs like yours are becoming a little bit more prevalent and more known in the industry. And I think it's definitely necessary for, like I say, the longevity of people that want to play sport beyond 30 plus kind of thing. Those that look after them. Obviously, you can change the way you play to play smarter, but also, what if you didn't have to?
Correct.
What if you could just play at 100%, or, at that just sub maximal effort every single time, all the way through till X, and therefore hopefully the body holds up longer, and it leads to a longer, more healthier life without medical intervention.
Right. And I think it's important to note as well that not all training sessions are created equal. Like, you can run and you can lift weights, or you can train specific to your sport. It's like pretty vastly different. And exactly. And going for a couple of 5K runs a week, and lifting some weights, and
I feel targeted.
But you're not really training for sport now. You've hung up the hockey stick. So it's different. But if you are training for like change of direction and agility, and that kind of, you're always like rounded over, with the hockey position, like the classic hockey position, and you need to be pretty unilaterally strong, and one side dominates more than the other, probably. Like, one side's really pushing a lot, one's pulling a lot. I assume. I haven't really had much to do with hockey, to be honest, but like, there's pretty niche positions that you have to get yourself into, and obviously you're not going to go into the gym and like the classic gym fails video where it's like maybe, I don't know, like the basketball free throw or something, and you see the guys have like resistance bands around their hands and they're like doing resisted free throws. Like you want to train for your sport, but it shouldn't look like your sport. Like generally you shouldn't even be able to tell what sport someone's training for in the gym, because it's just like the basketballer and the hockey player and the soccer player and the footy player, they're all doing the same kinds of movements, and people often try and create too much variance, I think. Exactly.
Sports
specific. So that's kind of what the program's about. Like I've categorized these athletes into like field sport athletes. And netball. And because they're amateurs, I think it's even more applicable for them to just do general preparation stuff, like, general midline stability and general injury prevention stuff and some aerobic capacity and some like generally energy system training. And they'll just benefit from it massively. Like you said, they're not elite athletes. They're not playing SANFL or AFL, or, they're not at the highest league for netball or whatever. These are general people that probably have trained suboptimally forever. Like they run 2 5Ks a week and they go and lift some weights and they go to their F45 class, and they think that's preparing them for a sport, but it's just not, to be honest.
No, cool, dude. I think it's really exciting. I'm intrigued to check in and just see how it's traveling in the coming weeks. And when did you say it starts? What day?
Jan 22nd, 23rd. We'll have like a two 2-hour sessions to do most of our testing stuff. And then some of the aerobic stuff will leak into the first week, but otherwise it'll be from Jan 22nd, kind of like first initial testing. And then 15 weeks later, we'll test again and hopefully see some pretty good results and hopefully have some bodies ready to tackle sport for the year.
Sweet, dude. Really cool. And you're using TrueCoach for that? Is that right?
TrueCoach and Strava. Yeah. Strava would just be individual or like team based Strava. So we can just like check on each individual and like create a little level of competition in that. And then TrueCoach will be the main platform for each individual athlete.
Sweet, man. And off the back of that, how is Luke Winrow YouTube going?
Yeah, lots of planning. Yeah, I think I underestimated. Well, I knew exactly. I'm a perfectionist in some ways. Like if I was if I want to put content out there, it has to be perfect. And I know we talked last time about just putting stuff out there. But I think I had a bit of a realization that, and again, kind of what I said just before, but you want to know what your end goal is and then reverse engineer it from that. So I'm like, okay, I need to have some level of a performance goal here. Like it can't just be a process goal. I'm really driven by like an end thing. And I was thinking in my mind, like, as long as I'm consistent with this, then I'll tick the box and it'll be good and it'll work. And I don't think that's enough for me to be motivated enough. Otherwise, I would just like scrape through and do the bare minimum and just get it done to tick a box. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I want to put content out there that's worthy of X amount of subscribers, 100,000 or 250,000 or whatever, and start from that and still go through the process of like trial and error and failing and learning from that. But I really want to do this really, really well, as everything that I do. I really want to do everything to the best I can. So I want to put content out there that's worthy of a lot of people watching it. So we filmed like the first 2 or 3 episodes and I just decided we'd scrap it and we'd start again. And I'd go back to the drawing board. And that was like kind of my failing and learning from that. And I think that's important because once I start in the very near future, it's going to be much better than if I was to just put out there some stuff like for the sake of putting it out there.
For sure. So are you... I had a question and I lost it. In terms of, you're pretty specific with what you're wanting to put out there, and having tested that, you still learn that lesson by recording those episodes. What is, you said you wanted more of an outcome-based goal or more of a specific goal. What is that now?
I think I just want to work off of something massive. Like when I was working and being mentored by Carl Goodman, a guy from Sydney who runs Athletes Authority, it was he used the example, and he got it from somewhere else, I believe, but a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And you want to aim for something that's like wildly massive, that it doesn't even seem possible really. And if you aim for that, then you would surprise yourself with what you achieve. You may even achieve that BHAG. It could be like, have 1 million subscribers, or it could be run your own facility with 200 athletes. or it could be like own 5 gyms or whatever it is. Having this massive, massive goal, I think, is important to put you on this path towards that thing.
Yeah.
And if you imagine like what that massive, massive goal is, really anything that's even close to that is still an amazing achievement. I haven't put a specific number on it because to be honest, I don't really care with the outcome of the YouTube, but having something out there that's like, okay, yep, this is worthy of 1 million subscribers or something like that.
Yep.
Having some massive number, because then that's going to make me perform to this optimal level, like perform to my absolute best. But if I'm like, yeah, I'll just put a video out once a week for 52 weeks, and regardless how long it is or the quality of the content or whatever, I feel that the average quality of the session of the video would be not as good.
Yeah.
So I think it was important for me to have that realization and then work towards that. Not to say that the actual outcome of that thing is that important to me, because it's not. Like, I don't really care, but having that in my mind is what's going to make the difference, I think, with the quality.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think you're driven, like you are a perfectionist, but you're also impulsive. And so like you're trying to balance that out and learn from one and utilize the other as well. And I do need to, I think BHAG comes from a guy called Jim Collins.
That's right.
And he wrote a book about it, but I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, shout out to Carl, because I was mentored by Carl. I don't know how many years ago now, but I want to say 3. Maybe 4. So yeah, Carl definitely knows his shit. And I think that's one of the things that people that when it comes to goal setting, and like we've said, gone through this before, it's more about milestones and goals and all that sort of, there's so many different iterations or variations of what people can set to achieve. But I think the idea of a BHAG is just like you said, just to be completely beyond the realms of what you can even construct. So when you think of the biggest thing, go bigger again. Like think and make it just ridiculous that when you tell people, they kind of roll their eyes and you're like, no, that's because imagine if you could, imagine if you did, or imagine if you just missed that. Well, then how hard is it to go from just missing to just getting? So right. I think it's a really cool concept. And I think it all stems from not BHAGs, but for yourself is like, I want to be a holistic athlete. So how do you document that, and how do you share that of a level that is worthy for people to consume? And one of the things, like for me, even with this platform here, is like, it's got to be, we want it to be the best, like in terms of quality of consumption of what we're discussing, but also I want it to be super simple, because I don't want it to take up too much time out of our weeks, because otherwise we'll stop doing it. So that was one of my targets for this. So because this being the podcast, isn't my all. Do you know what I mean? Having a catch up with a mate isn't everything. It's really important, but it needs to be as simple as rocking up to a coffee shop and having a bit of a yarn. And so that's a quality addition to my life, not what makes my life. So yeah, don't know that I have a BHAG for Tom and Luke discussing reality, but I think reality will always exist. So I don't think these discussions will ever cease.
Yeah, I don't see it. It's too easy to stop. And as you said, kind of, I think off camera or off microphone the other day, it's just like, we were going to do this anyway. You know, we catch up regularly and have these kinds of chats. It's like, what's the difference between that and having a microphone and a camera?
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, it's so natural for us that it's like, you know, I had so many mates like not realize that I talk like this, as stupid as that sounds. Like, I've just had like high school mates that it is always just like a piss take, and it's always like a laugh and whatever, and never really any deep conversations, which is a bit of a shame, to be honest, because it's like I love these dudes, but we've never really talked like that. You know, I don't know what the difference is, but this for us is just like what we do. And I think because we've had this from like day dot, it's just expected. Like whenever I catch up with Tom, it's just having a good quality yarn about some important stuff. Yeah, and it could be anything. It could be nutrition, or it could be training, or it could be like politics, or it could be whatever. It could be anything.
Speaking of anything, I want to venture into this topic, and I don't know enough about it, but I definitely have something in there. And that is, what the heck is going on with the crypto world?
I'm a complete moron, and I do not know, but
you definitely
I know it's down.
A level up from me here.
I don't think so. I just watch a lot of YouTube, and everything that I would say is just completely paraphrasing. Like I don't know how to read charts or any of that nonsense.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
At the moment it's down.
Financial advice.
NFA.
Not financial advice. Yeah, it's down. What's going on?
Yeah, don't know. I think the stock market's down as well, and yeah, it's down. It's pretty grim, but from my sources, and there's just a couple of dudes I watch on YouTube from America. They're the term's bullish, so they're still bullish. So that means I'm still bullish. Like I back these guys in, and to be honest, like you look at the charts and it's just a small dip really in this massive uptrend. So
yeah,
you just have to hold on to it, and yeah, like it. I'm confident that it's. I don't want to say it's the future, but because that's like the cliche, like flashcard term, but it's I think it's a really big thing, and I think it's important that now more than ever, really, like we see how much corruption there is in the world. Like having a decentralized financial system, I think, is more important now than ever. And plus, how many countries are getting involved? Like, it's the mass adoption's right around the corner, and the fact that it's down like 30 or 40%, which is pretty grim, but it's just a volatile market. I think like that's really as much as I know, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit the same. I definitely didn't get on it when I think the first time I ever heard, and this is, how deep can we go here? But this first time I ever heard about it was going back to a few jobs ago, and I was employed as a coach at a gym by two guys. They were both accountants, and then they split while I was there, and one of them went off to be like a broker or whatever it is for crypto, for Bitcoin. And I think Bitcoin back then was maybe $2,000.
Yeah, right.
And he's starting his own company, and it was like, financial advice or whatever. I don't fully understand what it was. I was just like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. I don't have $2,000 to spare to buy a Bitcoin. I don't think back then you could not buy complete. I don't really know. I'm probably going to be corrected here, but that was the first time I heard it. And that was, I want to say 2016, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, so that was the first time I heard of it. It kind of disappeared, then came back to the front or to the fore, maybe last year, the year before. We're in 2022 now, crazy. And yeah, started a little bit of a dabble and that sort of stuff. So yeah, just really interesting to see.
And then it hit 80 grand.
Flows. Sorry.
And then it hit 80 grand.
And then it hit 80 grand. Yeah,
from for those that 80,
aren't aware, from 2 to 80. So that's a decent little margin. But yeah, I completely agree. And again, not financial advice, but I don't see it necessarily. I don't know enough of it, so I can't understand how it could completely replace currency, like national currencies. But I definitely see it as a way forward. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck an NFT is and all that sort of stuff, and how that's got value. Yeah, don't know, but I do think whatever that world is becoming more and more relevant and more valid. But yeah, it's just been a bit of a pinch over this Christmas period. If anyone does have any or has some crypto or knows nothing or everything about it, it's definitely gone backwards. But I think, as they say, it's time to buy the dip. But
dollar cost average.
Yeah, dollar cost average, exactly. Just a little bit.
Well, Elon says that it might be the currency of the Martian race when we get up there, and he says that's between 5 and 10 years away.
Well, he actually mentioned, I can't remember what it was. He's like, why haven't we been back to the moon in whatever many years? And why can't we start to build like a hub on there in some regard? Not to live forever, but just some sort of space exploration, because then you've got a base there to explore from there. Because currently everything is beyond the moon, but we've got the moon in access. So why don't we set up some sort of space base? I don't really know, on the moon. Which I'm like, that's actually pretty valid. What was it? 1969, we went to the moon. So what? 52 years, 53 years since we've been to the moon, and haven't been back in like 40 or whatever it was. Maybe less. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, why haven't we got a base up there? I've seen movies about it. They've done it. Why can't we do it?
There's some smarter people than you and me, I'm sure, somewhere. But it makes sense. Like it's lower gravity. You could like have some kind of like slingshot system where you can just like throw these hurtle these rockets out into space.
Yeah.
You don't need like propulsion so much. I don't know. This is a couple of idiots. One idiot at least talking about this. You're not an idiot, mate.
I thought you were talking about me. One idiot on yourself. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, dude, talking about this stuff and listening to him talk about it is like, it's pretty wild. It's pretty futuristic. Like the whole Neuralink, like 5 and 10 years, man. It's
I don't
pretty,
want to think about it. It's scary.
pretty soon. It's
That's
pretty
scary,
soon.
dude. Yeah.
Would you get
Well,
Neuralink?
would I?
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't be one of the early adopters. I wouldn't be an early adopter. No.
But what
Would
if they
you?
gave out Bitcoin or something for like adopting early? Where it's like Bitcoin's now like 80,000 now, and then it eventually is like $1 million. They're like, we'll give you 5 Bitcoin for jumping on.
I'd go. Can you give me 5 mil?
Yeah.
Can you buy them? That's fair. Buy them, sell them. Yeah. Don't know. Don't know. Would you?
I don't know. I was talking to a mate, Cameron, about this the other day, and he doesn't like him. He doesn't like Elon at all. And
Yeah. Well, a few people don't rate him.
I like him. He's like a spectacle. It's like
Mm.
it's like a fun show, and talking about what he does is
Like an
insane.
intelligent Kanye,
Yeah, true.
or a more
Yeah,
science Kanye, maybe. I wouldn't say Kanye is not intelligent, but
different
yeah.
field.
Yeah.
Yeah, listening to Kanye, that interview again with Joe Rogan was like a bit of an eye opener. I think like he's a bit of a genius in his own way. I'm going to cop some flack for saying that, but
I agree.
I back him in.
as evident by Kanye in the background here.
Yeah, and he's a creative genius, man. And how he talks and how he communicates is, I mean, he says it himself. It's like an orchestra. It's like so many things happening at once, all for possibly the same message. And how he talks, he like jumps around in conversation and what he's talking about and the topic, and then it eventually just like comes back to the same thing somehow. It's like, how did he even do that? Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome. Yeah. And
time.
Elon is similar in a way. Like Elon, the thing I love about Elon Musk is that if someone asks him a question, he doesn't mind taking a long pause between hearing and then answering.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to like check my phone to see if the podcast hasn't paused or not. He did one with like, he was on Lex Friedman's podcast and he asked him something about like what the meaning of life is or something like that.
Yeah.
And he takes like a 20-second pause. And I'm like running. So every second feels about 15 seconds. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I thought the podcast paused and my AirPods died or something, but he'd just like taken that long to think about what the question was and how he was interpreting it, and then what his ideas were about it, and then just like formulate this really well thought out answer. And I think it doesn't have to be 20 seconds, but I think that's important for people to, and I have to do this as well, but take some time, like actually think about the words that you're putting out there.
Yeah.
Because just what you're saying, you might think it's coming out a certain way, but people perceive it completely differently to how you put it out there. And I think maybe if we just took some extra time to say the things that we think, we may formulate better answers and have better conversations and actually be perceived the way we want to be perceived, rather than just how we're perceived based off of the words we're saying. It's
he's not one to waste words. Hey,
say again.
He's not one to waste words. There's a few people like the people that are like that are very measured and calculated, and it's very impressive, as we keep saying but very impressive for
with all these filler words. Like, literally.
It's true though. Like I think that those that can actually just pause, take a moment, think, and then really be concise with what they're trying to say, it's a skill. It's an art form.
I think I'm going to really try and do that more. But also I'm impulsive, so it's like words to brain is like half a millisecond, and then I'm just saying whatever I think. But I think mostly I'm pretty measured with what I say. It's not often I go on tangents, I know that, but it's not often I just like verbal diarrhea, unless I'm on the podcast.
So what's your agenda for this week when it comes to your training?
My training, I've upped the volume a lot, which is nice, which means more calories, which means optimizing recovery a little more, which means that I'm putting some emphasis onto it. Because if I'm just training and like training 3 or 4 sessions a week, and I can kind of get away with recovering suboptimally and eating kind of whatever I want. But if I'm like training as I've been training 5 or 6 days a week, now I've added 3 extra Olympic lifting sessions and 2 or 3 runs. So it's a fairly massive increase in volume. which is good because now the calories come in and I optimize my recovery more, and I really focus on getting to bed by like 9 o'clock and drinking my 4 liters of water a day and taking my vitamins, regardless if I feel good or not. We talked about that. Like, I only ever take my vitamins if I'm feeling average. Whereas now it's like, no, you take them as like this thing that you do every single day.
Yeah.
And I feel good, and my body is like risen to the occasion. And
Cool.
I feel really good. So today's some Olympic lifting stuff. I got snatch into deadlifts and the lower body session at the gym. And I think that was an important realization for me as well, is kind of just going off on a side note here, but adding in the Revel sessions. That's the gym that I'm at. And being a part owner, I think it's important that I still practice what I preach, because I'm delivering these sessions. And I think it's important that I keep that in my regular training schedule. It's really well programmed, and it's going to get me to these goals that I've set myself. And that means that I can still maintain, my goals and my training, but someone else is just programming it, and that doesn't bother me at all. So yeah, I'll maintain those sessions for sure.
Yeah, sick, dude. That's good. Sounds like you're calculated. What sort of running training, or like, and are you doing anything specific when it comes to your running or aerobic stuff?
Still increasing volume, so up around the 10Ks this week. Just increasing by about 1 or 2Ks a week, depending on how I'm feeling. And I feel like once I break that barrier of, maybe like 13 or 14Ks, I think 20 will come pretty quick, which means 25 will come pretty quick. Then it's just building volume from there. I don't think I'm going to run much more than like 30-ish up until the 50 in December. But it's just increasing volume. To be honest, it's not the fitness. It's more so just like the muscle endurance. I can feel my feet, my ankles, and my like tibialis anterior and stuff, like all my shins. Not so much skeletal, which is good. It's all muscular, which means I can train it and get better at it. But it's just increasing volume. So I do one long run, which increases by 1 or 2Ks a week. And then I do a couple of shorter, faster ones where it's just like maybe up to like 5 or 6 that I try and run, super race pace, like, try and be in the 4-minute Ks, 440, 430, something like that, and really dig. Just to build a bit of that lactate threshold and some aerobic power. And that's going to help develop my endurance as well through my lower body. So it's good. It feels good. Like I said, my body's risen to the occasion. I think that's, a testament to upping my nutrition and being really on top of my recovery. Thanks to Whoop. January 1st, my recovery was pretty bad, as you can imagine, but I bounced back really, really well from then. How about you? How's your running training going?
I went for a couple last week, and I think it was sweltering where I was. I was down south away for a getaway for a few days, and I went for a run in the afternoon, which I shouldn't have done. I should have gone in the morning. So I went for a couple of runs there, and then Sunday, which was yesterday, I would have normally gone for a longer run, but I'm still building. So it's more for me, obviously the running is the main goal. So my strength goals come second to that. So my goal, my training plan is essentially long run on a Sunday, strength work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, running Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, with a potentially just a cruisy run on a Saturday. However, yesterday I played 18 holes, so that took precedence over running, and I completed 10Ks. So 10Ks of walking around with a golf buggy has absolutely zero relevance towards my running, but I'll take it.
You got to make it work.
And I'm still quite a way out. I don't feel like I have the not the physique, but I don't feel like I feel heavy at the moment. So I want to build into a lighter weight so I can run a bit more smoothly, because my cadence and my legs just feel heavy at the moment. So into the gym this afternoon. I think I'm training at a mate's gym here, just because the timings work whilst I'm here, in terms of that's quite middle of the day where I can train. And I like being able to book into a session because it keeps me accountable, train with people, because I feed off their energy as opposed to getting to a gym and train alone. So I'll be training, I think it's squats and chin-ups today. I can't remember exactly. But then tomorrow, the goal would be sort of like a 6K run at a slightly faster than race pace or race pace. So 4:45 or less. And then Thursday's run is a slow run. So looking at 6-minute Ks. So it's more heart rate based on a Thursday. and then scattered in some strength stuff. So just building into the week. It's always chaos when I'm here because I'm more likely to be on call and be needed at places. Whereas when I am back in Adelaide, I can, 9:30 in Adelaide is 7:00 in Perth. So I can get into the gym, train at 9:30. Not too much I can get done at 7:00 in the morning in Perth without being here in person. So I think part of which you touched on there is the upping of calories as well. And that's one thing that I really want to focus on with an increase in aerobic output, is making sure that I'm consuming enough carbs and that sort of stuff. Not that I know everything about nutrition, but I definitely know a fair amount for someone that isn't a nutritionist. So I know for a fact that I need to increase calories across the board, even just on general day-to-day life, and that'll help me with my legs feeling heavy. It's probably just that I'm just not eating enough,
Sure.
especially when I'm running afternoon or trying to lift heavy in the afternoons. So yeah.
We'll come back to the nutrition thing, but do you find maybe you should include some like plyometric stuff, some bounds, do some like knee health stuff, like knee over toes guy, doing some of those like reverse walks, like up a hill, or doing some, I can't remember, like Patrick step ups or like tib raises, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the programming at the gym that I train at here, it includes a lot of that stuff.
Awesome.
They do a lot of like hamstring flexion, quad extensions and stuff like that. Just make sure they really isolate movement, so it's not just full compound lifts and metcons or CrossFit, if that's how we want to categorize it. It's a little bit more specific and around full body health, joint health, etc. So yeah, it's targeted towards potentially a little bit more of an athletic demographic as well, which is kind of handy because that's kind of what I'm chasing. So yeah, that'll be handy. So it is included in there. It's not something I consider. The one thing I do need to do with my running is make sure I warm up and cool down. So that's got to be factored into the training times, which is something I haven't considered necessarily in the past. I can go, cool, I can get up, I can go for a 20-minute run, be done in just over 20 minutes. Sorry, go for a 5K run, be done in just over 20 minutes. I'm sweet, kind of recover as a heart rate recovery, less so about, stretching and that sort of stuff and body care. Whereas now it's a case of, no, my 5K run, it's going to be at 22 minutes because it's specific time. Cool, I need a 10, 15-minute warm up, probably need a 10, 15-minute cool down. So there's an hour for a 5K run. Do you know what I mean? And it eats into more of the day. So hence the early wake ups and just making sure I have sufficient time in the day to complete all these tasks.
Yeah. And again, like, what your end goal is, and it's to be like pretty elite in terms of pace.
Yeah.
You need to train like a pretty elite athlete if that's the case. Like you can't just roll out of bed and put the shoes on and off you go.
No.
Not that neither of us are old by any stretch, but I think it's important that, you look after your body now, because when you're 50 and 60 and you still want to do stuff like this, like that's my goal. I just want to get into endurance stuff when I'm older. I want to lift weights as long as I can, which is probably forever, to be honest. But the emphasis will change a little bit. Rather than doing like 6 strength sessions and 2 runs, it'll completely flip.
Yeah.
Big time. By the time I'm that age. So yeah, setting those habits in now, and again, knowing what your end goal is, and if it's to be close to elite, then you got to really practice that.
Be elite.
Exactly.
There's no reason why you can't. It feeds into that nutrition conversation as well, and just making sure, like you said before, like I'm going to have the supplements or the completely forgot what they're called, supplements, pills. I've completely lost it.
Like vitamins and minerals.
That's the word. I've got to have them even when I'm feeling good, because that's going to give me that, potentially make my body going from really good to even better. And just making sure that, you probably don't need that beer on a Sunday afternoon or whatever it is, and just like, no, because I got to get up for a run or go training on Monday, or ensuring that you have sufficient amount of food in your body to recover, because that's a big part of making sure you can go again and go again and go again. And if you're just going to go and eat the same old foods you've been eating and the same meals whilst you're not training, and then increase your training volume and eat the same amount of calories, you will fatigue and overtrain and slowly wither away and go, oh, it's too hard, I can't do it. When all you really need to do is probably eat more food, which isn't that the goal of life, just to be able to eat more food?
Yeah, just trying to cancel out your meals.
That's exactly right. I used to train specifically for that as well. Just like, I want to be able to enjoy everything that I consume, because I was, from a family, we're Italian, and from a family of foodies. My sister and her husband are big foodies. And like I want to be able to train to enjoy a really nice, slow cooked, beef short ribs with roasted potatoes and a couple of glasses of wine. But I can't go and have that every other week if I'm not doing the exercise or doing the work to balance that out and still look and feel great.
Yeah, I see, not all the time, and I've definitely eased it off a little bit, but I see food as fuel now. It's, the meal you just described then is like sustenance, and if you're training a lot, it's like, why not have that as often as possible? Besides maybe the 2 glasses of red wine, but, eating meat, plants and animals.
Yeah.
That's the goal for me, is just to try and keep stuff as simple as possible. Like not paleo, or definitely not vegan or any of that stuff, because I love meat and animal products and whatnot. And I see the benefit of eating those, but trying to keep stuff as simple as possible. I eat like steak and chicken breast, and I eat lots of veg and roast potatoes and roast pumpkin and all different kinds of things. And for me, that's just fuel. So
yeah,
besides meat, I keep pretty much the same. I'm not going to up my protein a lot. It's, about 2 grams per kilo of body weight or so, maybe a little bit more than that. So for me, that's like 160 to 180 grams protein a day. But my fats and my carbs just get bumped right up. So that's what you're really going to be burning when you're running. Like when I'm running those 5Ks and I'm running them pretty quick relative to me, or I'm running those 10 and 15 and 20 and eventually up to 50K runs, it's going to be, a lot of that's going to be carbohydrates and fats, especially. So, I just see it as fuel now, not so much. Like I don't really demonize any foods at all. Like my favorite dessert is just like a bowl of cereal, like Cocoa Pops Chex with full cream milk or something. Like I love that kind of, like, so simple as well. Or even like a pre-workout meal, you're going to be using that as fuel anyway. So it's like, why not get some sugar in anyway, and some high GI stuff that's just going to be in and out really quick out of your bloodstream. So I don't really care for, like, I don't focus too much on what I eat, or at least I don't have any like negative emotions around food, which, I'm pretty lucky. I think there's a lot of people that do have those kinds of negative emotions around food.
Yeah.
And they often just like demonize different types of foods. Obviously you want to avoid things like KFC, McDonald's and whatnot, but like any kind of fast food is hyper processed, like full of, additives and preservatives and all this stuff. Like, that classic of that guy that's got that Big Mac or that cheeseburger and it's been there for like 30 years and it hasn't aged at all. It's pretty gross. It's like, it's pretty wild. Like still makes my mouth water, but I wouldn't, you don't want to put it in your system too often, if ever, ideally.
No, not at all.
And that can be the difference, honestly. Like the difference between having even stuff like processed carbs, having lots of pastas and whatnot. Like you'd be surprised the difference it makes if you really just like simplify the foods that you're eating and just stick to, like, my really good mate Ethan and I, we'd thought about this a lot and we conversed about it a bunch, and that was kind of the thing we came up with, was eat plants and animals, limit processed carbs, and drink lots of water. You can't really go wrong with that.
And
again, that's not not nutritional advice. However, if I could advise you to do anything, it's just to do that, like simplify.
100%, man. 100%. I definitely have thoughts. I'm just going to duck off to the little boys' room and I'll be back.
Perfect, man.
Yeah, sweet. So I think, like you just said, like you'd mentioned your discussions with Ethan around plants and animals, and I think that's like anything. The advice that I would normally give a client around nutrition is you may need to do like not necessarily a reset, but like an elimination of foods. If you have addiction or you can't live without certain foods, sort of thing, in inverted commas. And there's always a balance. I always think there is a balance in terms of what you're trying to accomplish or what you're trying to achieve from training or nutrition changes. There's got to be something you're trying to get out of it. For example, removing gluten for some people can actually, improve gluten can be an inflammatory product or whatever it is. So that for some people, all they're trying to remove is something that's inflaming their body or their body's having a reaction to, not necessarily make them look better, but it could be feel better for sure. So I think for the most part, if you're getting the majority of your nutrition from anything that's ran, jumped, swam, been shot, grown, whatever, and by majority, I don't mean 51%, I mean like upwards of 80%, then to be adherent to a long-term diet, for want of a better term, indulge for the other 10% or 15%. And by indulge, I mean, if you're talking about calories, not necessarily talking about the volume of food you're eating. Because if you eat a volume of, say, if you look at a plate and 80% of that plate is, let's say, a chicken breast and a salad, that's going to be very minimal calories, right? Comparatively to the other 20% being all chocolate, because chocolate is very calorie dense. So you've got to think about, like, if I'm going to have 2,000 calories, I want 1,800 to 1,900 of it. Well, no, sorry, what did I say? 1,700 to 1,800 of it to come from naturally found foods. And the other 200 calories, sure, have a wine, have a chocolate, whatever it is. Choose the less processed, more nutritious version if you want to, but you don't need to. You know, feel free to enjoy that part of your of eating, because you can. But I think a lot of people go, it's an all or nothing. We as humans need to be very clear in like lines, otherwise we like to blur them. Gray areas become gray seasons, basically, and we just delve into that. Oh, well, it was 10%, but now it's 15, now it's 20, oh shit, now it's 40. I'm still having like the common feedback I get from clients is like, a question I'll ask, give me a day of food. Oh, well, I kind of skip breakfast because, you know, I'll have a coffee, I'll have maybe 2 flat whites for breakfast. And obviously we know that flat white is just all sugar because it's all milk. And then you're having 2 of them, and they don't tell you that they're the large ones. But then they get into work, and for lunch, you know, I'll just go down to the store and I'll pick up like a sandwich, but the sandwich is like, you know, the super white bread, or whatever it is, like white bread with, you know, sandwiches are healthy. It's like meat and cheese, meat and salad. It's like, nah, it's ham, which is full salted and processed. And then the salad is like, you know, one piece of lettuce, and then it's got like extra butter. And I'm not saying any of these foods as an individual are wrong, but as you can hear, it's like there's nothing nutritious in that in terms of a constant feed or constant volume of food in the body that is giving fuel. And then, you know, dinner is like, oh, just it varies. And dinner always varies. Like dinner is the one thing that will just vary for everyone, because no one's having the same dinner every night. So that's completely valid. But straight away, so it's like, I don't understand. I eat pretty well. I just have like, I don't eat breakfast. So that's good. It's like, no, you're just having sugar. You're having like 2 milk. You're having like 2 massive glasses of milk with caffeine, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong. I just got another coffee. It is a completely black coffee though. I'm one of those people that like gin and like black coffees. Psychotics or whatever they call us.
Yeah, big black coffee fan.
Yeah. And it's not to point and laugh. It's more to bring awareness to it. Just like, well, maybe instead of having coffee in the morning, you're not actually skipping a meal because you're having so much milk that it is essentially a small breakfast, but it's all sugar. It's all processed milk, basically. So instead of having that, maybe just have 1 coffee, or hell, have 2 coffees, but make them black. And people are like, oh no, I don't like black coffee. So then you don't really like coffee. You just like the flavor of the milk.
Yeah.
Like I'm so adamant about this. Yeah, I'm so out. Yeah, I don't mind like if people want milk coffees for sure, but this is what we're saying. Make sure that the 80% of your diet comes from things that have ran, jump, swam, or been caught, grown, whatever. And apologies to the vegans out there. But I think that's important to identify that absolutely what you said. There's a difference between calorie dense and a calorie whatever the other, you know, highly nutritious food, which is definitely a topic I love to talk about. I do like talking about nutrition because I know a little bit more than some people, but nowhere near as much as I'd like to know. And it's always
Dunning-Kruger.
Sorry,
Dunning-Kruger.
Who's that?
You know the Dunning-Kruger effect? Where
Oh,
you learn
yeah,
something
yeah,
about
yeah.
a topic.
We did discuss this the other week, actually. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And nutrition's one of those things. Like the rabbit hole goes so deep.
One thing I am curious about, and I did give you a little bit of insight, but a little bit of forewarning about this, is on a steak, right? You eat a steak, and I know you do, you like your Scotch fillets. Will you eat the fat on the outside of the steak?
100%, the whole thing.
Okay, so why so? Because I know some people won't eat the fat on the outside of the steak.
Well, if we're looking at like per gram, how many calories or, energy, or essentially fuel. Like you need calories in your diet. 1 gram of carbohydrates is 4 calories.
Yep.
1 gram of protein. Oh wait, 1 gram of
No.
1 gram of chicken breast. 1 gram of protein is 4 calories.
Not 1 gram of chicken breast. 1 gram of
1
protein.
gram of protein is 4
Yep.
calories.
Yep.
And 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. 1 gram of alcohol is 7 calories.
Yeah.
So it's over 2 times as dense in terms of energy. And for people that use,
Yeah,
4.
I'm following.
Yeah, it's over 2 times as dense. So if we have 1 gram of carbohydrates, 4 calories, 1 gram of fat is 9 calories, over 2 times as dense in terms of its energy amount. If you're using it, you need it. It's a slow burn. It's one of those fuels that you can't process super, super quickly. Because of its makeup, how it's made. I'm not going to go into like Krebs cycle or any of that stuff, because honestly, I don't know it deep enough to explain it, but it is dense. So you need that stuff. So if you're going for your long runs, or you've got those hour-long workouts, or, if you're like grinding away at hot yoga for 45 minutes or whatever, like you need fats in your system. Not only as a fuel source, but also for like neural function. You need it for all kinds of stuff. Like you need it for like neural generation. You need it to like line your nervous system. Essentially, it's like a conductor. So fat is one of those like classics that's been demonized from whatever generation, I don't know, but it's like same as salt was like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It's like you need sodium in your system. It's like part of muscle contraction. If you don't have enough, you start cramping. It's just like one of those things. And fats should make up a fair chunk. I think it's like however much, like a third of your calorie intake for the day, something like that. So it needs to be cooked well. Like if we're talking about steak specifically, you need to sear it, and it's got to be well salted and all that stuff. But
so you're telling me eating fat doesn't make you fat?
No, it doesn't. No.
What
will make you fat is, I've had discussions on kind of both directions with this.
Okay.
Whether it's an excess of calories or a surplus of processed carbohydrates or a surplus of processed carbohydrates. I've had conversations both ways, and both are correct, I think. It's, if you're eating more than what your system needs, like it's energy in, energy out. If you're eating more than what your system needs, then you'll put it on, you'll store it. In saying that though, it's very easy to eat in a calorie surplus if you're eating lots of processed carbs. Like if you're eating Snickers and Mars bars, it's really easy to eat in a surplus versus if you're eating like, if your body needs 2,000 calories, it's pretty hard to get that in with just broccoli and chicken breast. So it's like a bit of a balance of energy in, energy out. However, I've heard that, and again, because I don't know a lot about this side of things, I'm not going to talk too deeply into it, but I've also heard that you can eat less calories than what your body needs. But if those calories, let's say you need 2,000, you eat 1,800 of just Snickers, you'll still put on weight, even though you're in a calorie deficit. So I'm not sure exactly. I think it's important that we research more. Maybe you could shed some light on that. But I've heard both stories of that.
I wouldn't know too much. I would love to get one of my friends on who is a dietitian, and maybe we can pick her brain about it. But obviously an excess of calories, like calories that aren't being put to use, will be stored. It's just human nature. So if you're, there's what are the 4 or 5? It's like BMR, NEAT, eat, and the thermic effect of food, or something like that. They're the 4 things that affect calorie output on a daily basis. And then you have, calorie input, which is what we eat, which is why we need consumption of food, which is why we can last for days without food, because your body stores. So if you're, those 4 things, are 2,000 calories, and then you eat 2,000 calories, you consume 2,000 calories, you absorb all that, then you're going to be basically at a maintenance level. And it's always, within 100 or a couple of 100 calories either way, which is why you need a big change to elicit a big change, or to elicit a change, because your body will, there will be undulations within that. But I think what it comes down to is actually the reactions in the body. So if you're eating, your question was, and this is me hypothesizing. So your question was, correct me if I'm wrong, you can still eat at a calorie deficit and put weight on in some regards.
Yep.
Not having minimal expertise in this area, my assumption or hypothesis would be that the reactions within the body aren't positive. So your body is being forced to do things it doesn't want to normally do with processed foods, and therefore it is retaining more calories. It's not retaining more calories than you consume. It's just not. So actually, no, I'm going to go back on that. It's actually just not burning the right amount of calories initially. So that would be my assumption. Because,
and again, that's not my thoughts. I've just heard that is.
I would almost disagree. I would almost disagree. You can't eat at a true calorie deficit and put weight on. You could potentially eat just below your calorie maintenance and maintain weight, but therefore your maintenance is actually lower than you perceive. Sure. But I would emphatically disagree that you can eat at a calorie deficit and put weight on.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I've just heard it both ways, and I thought it would be interesting to chat about and find your thoughts. How about we rephrase that into, rather than putting on weight, this is the classic actually, rather than putting on weight, you're still eating in that deficit. Let's say it's 1,800 calories and your body needs 2,000. You would put on body fat.
Yeah, so that's your composition, your makeup of your food. So, but therefore, for me, you're not eating a sufficient amount of protein. You're eating far too many as a percentage carbs and fats. So therefore, your body can only utilize those things for certain reactions in the body, processes within the body. And I'll get this wrong, but carbs are for brain function and energy, like daily energy consumption. Your fats are for hormones and highways, so they help the transitions within the body, so any neurotransmissions that happen or communications. And then protein is for muscle regenesis and recovery and stuff like that. Obviously, there's other uses that they have, but if you're not having a sufficient amount of muscle recovery foods, you're therefore not going to be able to, and you're exercising, your body's not recovering. So therefore, the muscle isn't growing or the muscle isn't maintaining. So therefore, the excess that you're having in the calories of the carbs and the fats is actually just being retained for that time, as such as when you will use it for exercise or for your hormones or whatever. So therefore, your muscle decreases, muscle mass decreases, and then either water retention or fat mass increases, which is something we see a lot of, which is why a lot of people can say, I want to stay at 80 kilos or stay at 60 kilos or whatever, but I want to change my composition. And that's something that we, work with at work as well, for those that, look, I don't want to put any more weight on, but I thought I'd be more defined, or I thought I'd have more muscle. So, all right, great. Well, maybe what you need to do is actually eat in a calorie surplus and train more specific to muscle growth, not bulkiness, but muscle growth, to then consume the calories that are existing within your body that have been saved for a later date.
Yeah, I don't know how specifically. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know how specifically or how specific you give that guidance, like in terms of macronutrients and calorie amounts, but generally I'll work through level 0 through level 4. If I'm prescribing this kind of 100%. Nutritional guidance or whatever to clients or to members of the gym or whatever. Generally it's level 0 is make sure you have a good relationship with food. It's paramount, because if you don't, then regardless what you do, if there's feelings of guilt and you're so self-conscious about the foods that you're eating and you demonize certain foods, and that's just a vicious cycle that you don't want to be a part of. So level 0 is good relationship with food. And that is obviously a super loaded thing. And that could be trips to psychologists, or it could be soul searching stuff, or figuring out what your goals are, or it could be, and I said just before, I'm lucky that I don't have those kinds of negative feelings around food, because I just love food and I see it as fuel. But not a lot of people, not everyone is like that. So that's level 0. Level 1 is just a calorie amount for the day. So based off of those 4 things, what would they be? NEAT, EAT, and thermogenesis.
Yep.
It's a calorie amount. So whatever your goals are, you eat relative to that. If you want to gain weight and you want to put on muscle mass, then you eat a few more calories than what you need. Start at maybe a 10% surplus and then increase week to week or fortnight to fortnight or whatever, relative to body weight. If you want to lose, then you just decrease by 10%, and then you decrease it further and further as you go to a point. You never want to get down to 800 calories a day or something. That would just be crazy, but to a point, and then you reassess. That's level 1. Level 2 is calories and protein amount. So usually somewhere between 1.5 to 2 ish grams per kilo of body weight
Yep.
as like a guide, maybe even a little bit more than that if you're doing lots and lots of resistance training, as in like lifting weights,
Yep.
up to like maybe 2.4, 2.5 grams per kilo. And then what's that? Level 1, level 2?
That's level 2.
Level 3 would be calories, proteins, and then carbs, let's say. So now we're looking at, all right, we've got 2,000 calories, we've got 160 grams of protein, we've got, maybe 250 or 300 grams of carbohydrates, and the rest can be fat.
Yeah.
However many grams that works out to be. And then level 4 would be working out all of your macronutrients. So proteins, carbs, and fats, and calories. And then like the ceiling could go forever, I guess. Like level 5 and onwards could be, now you don't have to track. Now you know roughly what is in food. If that's your goal, you just want to eat intuitively, then amazing. Like that could be like the gold standard. You are still achieving all these outcomes. You still get leaner or still put on muscle or whatever, but you don't have to track now. That's kind of the goal, I guess, for a lot of general populations, is that they don't want to have to sit there and track their yogurt with their muesli and their chicken breast and their rice or their pasta or whatever, like whatever's in the sandwich or whatever. The goal is to try and just eat intuitively and achieve those goals. I think that's kind of the desired outcome for most people, I think.
How long do you think that process would take? Like,
it depends on the person.
Okay, like ballpark, you thought it's like 5 weeks, like 6 months
to achieve like level 5 where you just eat intuitively?
Yeah.
It probably, to be honest, took me, but I wasn't aiming to eat intuitively. My goal was outcome. My goal was to be the best athlete. This is when I was training really early and I was doing bodybuilding stuff, and I never wanted to compete or anything like that, but I just wanted to do the best that I could at it. And I counted and tracked calories and macronutrients for probably like 3 years, I reckon. 2 or 3 years, something like that. But you can definitely progress faster through the levels, way faster. If your goal is just, I just want to eat intuitively and know what's in food, you could do a pretty comprehensive, like intensive, maybe, because you wanted to spend long enough understanding what's in food and lots of different types of food, but not too long that you get bored tracking it. I would say like the fastest, probably like 2-3 months.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I was thinking 3 months. Like, I think if you're fully bought in and you can commit to it, 3 months is a good timeline. I've known it as something similar. I like the additions that you've got that are different to mine, because I've been taught on the good, better, best. So good, like very basically your level 1, 2, and 3. So good being just eat the calories. All I want you to do is just, because a lot of people undereat, I find, especially when it comes to the whole foods, because there's so many, they're not calorie dense. So if you go, hey, I want you to stop eating pizza and pasta, and I want you to have steak and veg every night, or chicken and veg, or fish and veg, or whatever, they'll be like, oh, but I have nowhere near my calorie goal. Yeah, exactly. So eat more, basically. So like good is calories, better is calories and protein, and then best is like, I normally go calories, protein, and then which like play around with carbs and fats, because some people are more adaptive to fats and some people are more adaptive to carbs. The whole keto regime, I don't disagree with. I think different people have different benefits, and some people can some people's bodies utilize, because of what they've grown up with, can utilize carbohydrates in a different way, and some people utilize fats in a different way. So but I like the idea of like, start it with a relationship with food. And have you seen I think it's Ed Helms's pyramid?
No.
I'll try and attach it in the show notes, and it's everything actually comes all the way back to, I'm going to butcher this, basically a good pyramid. I think it's Ed Helms. Nutrition, strength, pyramid, energy balance, I think it's called. Behavior and lifestyle, which for me is, are you sleeping 8 hours? Are you drinking enough water? And are you stressed? Like, if
that's the bottom of the pyramid.
Yeah, it's the bottom of the pyramid. You can't put the pylons on nothing. So if you don't have those 3 things right, which is a little bit, I would add in, what's your relationship with food? I think that's a really cool level 0. If you don't have those right, don't even worry about how many calories you're eating. If you can't have your 3 liters of water a day, if you're sleeping 5 hours a night, if you're stressed the whole time, go to the beach and chill out, drink some water, go to bed earlier.
Yeah, there's more to life than tracking calories.
Just do that for 2 weeks, and your body composition will change naturally. Because we can go into the science, but I can't be bothered. Basically, there's so many different reactions in the body that are affected by that. So you can go, well, I'm eating more food, and your body go, hang on, I haven't got enough water in my body to process this. your body needs water to process food. So if you don't have enough of that, it's just going to go either straight through your store.
Yep. High cortisol, all that
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, your stress is all out of whack. You're up and down in the night. You're not recovering. Your body doesn't have enough time to utilize the food that you've increased on to therefore go and change your body's makeup. So yeah, I really like that. I'm going to take that to my team and utilize that 4-stage process and just revisit. We do revisit the Ed Helms pyramid quite often. He's actually got a training one as well, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah, cool.
Which I might revisit as well. But
Ed Helms,
yeah, I'll share it with you when we get off as well, just so you can
cool.
get your eyes over it. But I think that's a really good spot to maybe wrap it up. I based on this discussion, I definitely think I want to dig a little bit more into nutrition myself, but also maybe talk with you a little bit more about it. But I think in the most exciting news that we've got, and we've saved it right to the end, is we actually have our first guest on, which will be released. I think it's going to be released this time next week. Do you want to give the listeners a little bit of insight into who we have?
Sure. Yeah, if you like. Or should we leave it a secret?
Oh, up to you. It is someone that is in the health and fitness scene. You know this person a little bit more than myself, so I'm excited to discuss some just various topics and just get a bit of an understanding as to what that lifestyle looks like, and what sacrifices are being made, or what benefits are coming because of just really barreling down that path, I guess.
Yeah, as we know, there's so many different routes in the fitness industry. It's just like the most dynamic industry, it seems, the way you can just go down so many different ways, so many different pathways. And this chick is going down a particular one. Not to, like, this seems like such a cliffhanger, but
I love it. No, good.
She's a gun, and she's making big waves in the fitness industry, and she's got some massive goals. So I'm keen to chat with her at length about this. Her and I have been mates for a little while. She's like an old student of mine, and she's a bit of a gun. So it's going to be a good chat.
Yeah, great. I'm looking forward to getting on the phone or on the Zoom with the two of you. We'll definitely probably this one will be out later today, and that will be out next week, next Monday. So stay tuned. And we do have a few more guests lined up as well. But as always, good to catch up. Yeah, enjoy your black coffees, and speak again soon.
See you soon, team.